everybody, and welcome to the SOCIALpreneur podcast. This is episode, I think, number 5. I have not been keeping track, but this is season 4, and I'm super excited for our guests today. I've been excited about all our guests, and all of them have been women this time around, or ladies this time around. I usually have a male in there, but I think it might be all ladies this time, but that is okay because, I'm all about women's empowerment and all about helping other women and connecting other women. This is what this podcast is about. The SOCIALpreneur, to me, really is the woman that is doing their own thing, that is helping other women, that is empowering women, and somebody that's like a connector and that's just in there doing their thing in their own lane. So I'm excited about all of these ladies. Quick housekeeping. If you have not listened to the past couple episodes, please do that. Please share the podcast. If you know that would be a great guest for this podcast, please send them my way. I always put the information below, my email and everything. You send them my way. And if you don't know someone, just, listen. Like I said, share, like, comment. It's free to do that. But let's hop into this episode because I'm super excited to get to know this lady. So we just met like literally a few minutes ago. Yeah. And I kind of looked at her stuff. I've looked at her stuff a couple times, but today I really dived into it. And I'm super excited about the things she is putting out there into the world. And I think you will be too, especially me as a woman of color and any other woman of color or any woman in general, about the things that she has and that we're going to talk about today. So I'm excited to welcome. Okay, I'm going to say it right, hopefully. Is it Afiya? Dr. Afiya Mbilishaka.
Mbilishaka.
Mbilishaka. Okay, you say your name, so I'll make sure that I said it correctly so people know.
Afiya Mbilishaka.
Well, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us what you do, what you're into, and what we could be excited for.
Okay, so my name is Dr. Afiya Mbilishaka, and I'm a clinical psychologist and I'm a hairstylist. And so I've developed something called psychotherapy, where I use hair as an entry point into mental health care. And so I train hair care professionals and therapists, basically how to use hair for healing. So in the salon space and even in therapy offices too, to talk about hair and the psychological significance of it.
I love this because I've never came upon this before, but I feel like it is so needed, especially women of color with our hair, and our hair is such an identity point for ourselves. So to have someone that talks to other hairstylists and hairdressers about things that are going on in their life, things that are going on with our hair, and that can trickle down to us is amazing to me. How did you get into this?
Well, I've always loved doing hair. I was my family's hairstylist. And so I would have these mini pop-up hair salons at family cookouts. And then when I went to college at the University of Pennsylvania, I still did people's hair. I wasn't the most business-minded, so I would do it for free. And so Black students would come to me to get their hair done. And this is like in 2000. So Allen Iverson braids and all these different hairstyles and stuff. And so I also was a psychology major. And I remember talking to my aunt on the phone one day and telling her I wasn't sure what I would do once I graduated, whether I'd become a psychologist or a hairstylist. And she said, well, why can't you do both? Now, I don't think she was telling me to do both at the same exact time, but that's the way I interpreted and thought, I can do hair and therapy together. So that's where that's the origin story. And so I ended up going to Howard University because I wanted to study Black mental health. And so I got my master's degree and Ph.D., became a licensed psychologist, became a professor. And then I went to hair school so that I did it in that order and entered sort of the hair care world with already having the psychology experience and put it all together then.
Okay, one, your hair is beautiful. I've been looking at it. So your hair is gorgeous. So I understand why people would come to you to get their hair done. Two, there's always been this talk about somebody's hairstylist being their therapist, because you tell your hairstylist a lot of things that you may not tell other people. So to marry them together like you did is genius. And to see that there is a niche for that, and that that could help people, is amazing in itself. So how, when you started to tell people that this is what you do, what was the reaction of that?
Okay. So I felt like the hair care world was much more receptive to it, in terms of like, yes, like I want to learn more about psychology. I feel like I'm very respected by hair
Right.
care professionals. However, for some of the psychologists that I told initially that they didn't really see it as a valid research topic or area, I actually was even told by a supervisor that it was too cutesy. And that's even before that became a popularized term, but it was too cutesy to do that research. And it wasn't like serious science. But as you know, hair is psychologically meaningful, it has lots of emotions, and people really connect to their hair care professionals. Right. And so I basically had to create my own subdiscipline of psychology and did a whole bunch of research studies to prove that hair was really important in mental health.
So when you put this out there to the world, and what was your first train of like thought with these hairdressers? Like what, like when they come to you, what do they ask? What do you tell them to do? What are some of that background that you give to them?
Okay, well, it's interesting. In doing the trainings, I cover 3 parts. First, I go really in depth into hair history. I do identify partially as a hair historian. And as we cover hair history, we'll see that across thousands of years, hair care professionals have traditionally been healers. And so giving that historical context is really important because it's not taught in cosmetology programs in the way that I'm doing it. I come from a family of teachers and historians, so I use that angle and that method to talk about hair history. So that's the first part. The second part is I get really into the signs and symptoms of mental illness as it would present in someone's chair, right? That there could be textbooks of what each disorder is, but sometimes women of color don't express it in the same ways. For example, that depression, in the books, it's taught like crying and being so sad. But on Black women in particular, it can actually be angry and attitude and like being stank. And so that could be also a sign of like despair and stress that sometimes we don't see as someone having a mental health crisis. And then the third part, I get into micro counseling skills, which is basically how to assess for harm. So to make sure everybody's safe or they're not engaging in any self-injury. Active listening techniques. I notice that sometimes hair care professionals just want to give advice before listening to the full story. So we go into those strategies. And then also how to refer to resources respectfully, because there are limitations in what can happen between a hair care professional and their client, but to make sure that they find a good therapist or psychiatrist or social worker that can help support them through what they're going through.
So I see this as a huge benefit to stylists and hairdressers and women just in general, but I also see this as a huge benefit for mothers who have daughters and they're doing their hair as when they're younger, and even like as they get older, because their identity kind of comes a little bit from their mother, what their mother is what they look like, what their mother's doing to their hair, how they're going to school, what their hair looks like, how children treat them in school by their hair. I see this branching out to many things, and I don't even know if you've even thought into that realm or not. I don't know if you want to speak on that.
Yeah, so I have actually been researching that topic. I have a few articles published on mother-daughter hair relationships, and some early elementary, middle school, high school developmental approaches to understanding hair. But I have an advisor, Dr. Marva Lewis out of Tulane University, and she developed something called Talk, Touch, and Listen while hair combing. And so she trains parents, and particularly mothers, how to have very healing conversations during the hair care process, how to be gentle. So no, people are tender-headed for real, and so not hitting kids with brushes or burning them with
Are we
things.
still doing this?
We still have scars on our ears from those experiences. But so she goes through how that hair care process is an opportunity for emotional bonding that can happen on a daily or weekly basis. And so she trains parents in that technique. So I kind of add on to some of the work that she's been doing.
There is this, I don't remember what her name is, but there is this lady I follow, and I just saw this video, and her daughter may be, let's say, 5 or something like that. And she was doing her daughter's hair. And I think she shows a lot of videos of her doing her daughter's hair and doing stuff with her daughter. And she was putting it on Instagram as a reel. And she was doing something that she does all the time. I think she just put her daughter's hair maybe in 2 ponytails and braided them like pigtails or whatever. And her daughter said, I don't want that, and started crying. And she stopped. She said, oh, are you crying? And she stopped. And she said, you don't want the pigtails? She said, yeah. And she took them down and did it. And like most mothers would be like, we got to go. You got to go to school. You're wearing these pigtails. It's not a big deal. But she literally stopped, and that kind of touched me. Like, I was like, ugh. You know, that we're actually listening to our kids, and it's as moms, and not just doing what we want to do, because the kid is their own person. They have choices too. I understand that they're young people. It's just like with the thing, another thing, and I know I'm kind of going on a tangent because this is reminded me of things where if little Susie or little Johnny or little, whoever, Allison, doesn't want to hug a person, if she doesn't want to give grandma a hug today, she does not have to give grandma a hug today. If she doesn't want to give dad a hug today, she doesn't. But back, my parents didn't necessarily make me do that. But, when I feel like when we grew up, you're giving your grandma a hug. It wasn't like an option. Right.
Yeah. It's important for children and youth to have body autonomy and boundaries, right? And for those boundaries to be honored and respected. And even this is an opportunity during hair combing for them to express opinions and have choice without harsh punishment or consequences.
Right. I love all of this. How are you using, so with the SOCIALpreneur, we always talk about social media. How are you using social media with this hair therapy, how do you say it?
Psychotherapy.
Psychotherapy. How are you using social media to get the word out and to fuel this amazing therapy that you are offering to all women? I would say a lot of Black women, but I mean, probably all
it's
women.
Universal. It's global. Yeah, it's interesting because I was totally not into any sort of social media for years. But in working at the hair salon, it actually became a requirement that all of us get an Instagram account. That's what the salon required in terms of picking hairstyles and posting some of our work that we were doing as a way to market the hair salon. And so I remember talking to one of the stylists, and she was like, you really need to put the mental health piece on here because there are so many influencers out here doing their hair and talking about mental health topics, but they have absolutely no training on it.
Right.
And it would be important for your voice to be out there in terms of the classes that you're teaching or the books that you've read or the books that you've written for people to know about it. And so it was actually through the encouragement of other stylists for me to be more on social media, but people really connected to it, especially when I share information about, again, things that I'm teaching or things that I've learned, because I do have like a Black psychology, African-centered approach to things that oftentimes is hard to find. And so just sharing a book that I'm reading, people are like, what happened in that book? Or interviewing other psychologists on my social media, like in a live, people would ask really high quality questions, but there wasn't a space to ask Black psychologists questions before this. So I think that I made a name for myself in terms of including really culturally relevant psychological information and hair pictures as well, hair inspo.
I love that. And being Black and knowing I have a master's in social work, and I did practicum and behavioral health and hospital and things like that. But knowing as a Black woman and as Black men, a lot of us do not want to go to therapy. I'm not saying me. I love a good therapist, but I love that you are putting that out there and making women of color feel comfortable to be able to talk about things that they're going through, because they do, not all of them, I'm not saying all, I'm not wanting to generalize it, but it was once looked at as being weak to go to a therapist, or you should be able to take care of things within the home or the church or, family. But in my approach, I think it's great to talk to somebody that is outside of the rim. It's good to surround yourself by people that have gone through the same thing and talk to them about things that they've been going through. And I love and I commend you for doing that and allowing us, I'm putting us to feel comfortable talking to you or anyone else about our hair, about the color of our skin, about what we're going through, about our mental health, anything. And it is a much needed service. And I wish more people in general would take people up on, just even if it's just a coffee date, like just something to talk, to get out your aggressions and things that you're going through.
Mm-hmm. We all need it. So I'm happy to provide some space that can focus on us.
Where do you see this going in the next 3 to 5 years?
Okay. Well, I want to make sure that it's much more accessible. So training more people in the technique, doing more live events. In my heart, maybe even a school that just focuses on this, and getting into the existing cosmetology schools. I think that it should be a requirement to learn about mental health, especially considering the role of hair care professionals in our communities. So maybe some of that. International, I could see that as well.
Yes. Maybe partnering with some other people that are doing some, maybe not similar, but something that can marry together, that would be, I see that as a good thing for you, because I feel like it can go beyond the salons, which I know it's already going beyond the salon, but it can, I feel like this could go anywhere, and it's so much needed. And YouTube and all these other things, we'll have to talk, because I'm always the ideas person for like my friends, and I feel like they'll be like, oh, I didn't think of that, or I thought of it, but they needed that little push to do it.
Please push. So welcome.
Yes. Where can people find you? What resources do you have right now that people can either grab and go quickly? Where can they find you? Websites and things like that.
Okay. Well, they can find me on Instagram. So I have at psychotherapy and at Dr. Afiya, which could be in the show notes, but at
I will put all this in the show notes.
_AFIYA. My website, psychotherapy.org. And then I actually have some books too, if people want to grab on Amazon. I have a book called Lay to the Side, which focuses on Black girls' experiences of hair in school. And I have a book called Strong Black Girls, which has some of the same themes, but negotiating how schools can be built in our own image. So I have a few resources. I even have a book on depression. It's called All About Depression. And so those are good resources, I would say.
Oh, awesome. Who are the type of people that I know you're looking for stylists, but what type of people are you looking for to reach out to you, to help, to collaborate with, to, just put it out there? Because if you don't put it out there, then it might not come to you.
Yeah, I just am looking forward to connecting with people who really believe in health and wellness. I know that this is trending, but also it's a lifestyle. And so people who are open to learning new techniques, taking better care of themselves, helping to support other people. So not even necessarily hair care professionals, but I actually work with a lot of therapists and teachers and parents who have that orientation as well.
And so you are a stylist and you work at a salon, correct?
So I haven't been working in a salon lately, but but I'm still doing therapy, but I haven't been styling hair as much.
Okay. I just wanted to support you and put that out there. And what 3 things can you tell, I would say, young ladies of color or women of color that want to start a business similar or want to start a business in general? Like what things can you give them to put into their toolbox that you think they might need?
Ooh, okay. I love making book recommendations. I think the book that influenced my approach to business more than any book ever, it's a random book, but it helped me a lot. It's called The 4-Hour Workweek. Have you read that one by Tim
I
Ferriss?
have I have not, but why? Why? Tell me why I should read this.
Because it helps focus on lifestyle design and curation. The concept that we oftentimes waste time doing things when we should focus on like our sweet spot and figure out how to delegate things and use technology in our favor, how to do like batch content creation and things like that. The book's old, but it was ahead of
I've heard of it. Yes. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to read this one.
Yeah, The 4-Hour Workweek. I also like the book We Should All Be Millionaires by Rachel Rogers. So it basically argues why all women of color should be millionaires and how the importance of boundaries and establishing a business and having like set rates and things like that.
Advocate for yourself.
Yeah. And then overall, just having a mentor, advisor, someone who actually is running a business that you can check in with. I know personally, I've been a part of a mastermind group for the past, I think we're hitting 6 years now, where we talk every single week. Like we never skip a week ever, but just to check in, to share some of our goals. So I think a big part is having community.
I agree with you that mastermind group. I'm not in one at this moment, but I've been in one, and it helps. It actually pushes you to do things that you say you're going to do, because then you got to show up that next week and be like, what did you do? And you can't be like, I'm still working on that. You gotta move forward and push forward. The takeaways that I got from you and from talking to you is for one, mental health is super important. Mental health is super important, and having someone to talk to is very important, regardless if it's your hairstylist or your friend or best friend, your school community and things like that. Be conscious of how much time you're spending on certain things, like your 4-hour work week, or not 4 hour. I wish 4 hours.
That's what it's called. Hey, that's the goal.
Yeah. Be conscious of what you're doing, but also if you have an idea that people might think is crazy, which I don't think people thought your idea was crazy, but if you have an idea that may not go with the flow of what everybody else is doing, that is okay, and it may work out, it may not, but it may work out, but you never know unless you totally try. So awesome. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing all the things that you are doing and making me think, and I think other women think about their hair, making them think about who they're talking to, and maybe even sharing what you do with their hairstylist. What is, if somebody asks you what's your little 30-second speech, what should we be telling our hairstylists to look for, or how to like find you, or what you do? What's your little 30-second, so we can say that to them?
Okay, the pressure. Okay, 30 seconds.
If it's longer than 30 seconds, it could be a minute.
Okay. So what should we be telling our stylists about psychotherapy?
Yes, that one. And two, if they need help with that, who they need to look for, and which would probably be you. But first, answer the first question you just said.
Okay. The pressure. Okay. So I would say to tell them that you're already a therapist without training. And so I think it's important to then get some support from someone who does this work all the time. So I definitely believe hair care professionals are already counselors, but without any training. So imagine what it would look like if they actually got books and resources and training and feedback and guidance and community around this work. So that's what I think about that, just to get more support for them, since they carry a tremendous amount of emotional labor, and to make sure that they get their needs met as well. Okay, what's the second part?
Well, basically you just answered the second part in the first part. Okay. Who do they need to look for in order to get that from? And you just said they need to, have somebody to help them and guide them in doing that. So basically you answered it. So
why did you make me so nervous? I panicked. Okay.
I wanted to make, so my thought on that was, if I'm going to my hairstylist and like I just listened to this podcast of this amazing woman doing these amazing things. Like, how am I going to tell my hairstylist what that was?
Yeah.
Basically, or they could just share this podcast with them.
Share the podcast. That's what it is. Share the podcast.
Yes, that would make it easier for them. So awesome. I have truly enjoyed talking to you, and it's just made me think of like things in my life with hair and all of that. Like just growing natural for the longest time. A lot of women didn't want to do that. Now, I wouldn't say everybody's natural, but I would say 95%, are natural. And how we evolved from that. So we can evolve even more with our hair. But thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on. I will have all your information down below for anybody that wants to contact you. Hopefully people are reaching out because this is such an amazing resource. And maybe we'll see you on another one.
Yeah, I would love to come back. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Everybody, thank you for joining into the Socialpreneur podcast. Like I said, like, share, send me somebody that, would be a great asset to this podcast. And I will see you in the next one with another great, great guest. So see you next time. Bye.